this is Mary Alice Hudson. I've chosen to frame this video around the concept of anomie, which is a social condition in which there is a disintegration or disappearance of the norms and values that were previously held. Hermanowitz says anomie is notable during periods of major structural change and has the potential to marginalize higher education. Hermanowitz's focus is anomie as a result of a lack of opportunities for recognition of achievements within higher education. According to Hermanowitz, this scarcity leads to greater competition among individuals and institutions who are competing for limited recognition. Hermanowitz says this inability to achieve professional goals and recognition creates inequities within the university and leads to the creation of the haves and the have-nots. Typically, much of the recognition attained by faculty is centered around research. This increased emphasis on achievement through research has led to a greater number of researchers, which means a smaller percentage of researchers receive recognition, which increases the number of researchers who are unable to receive recognition and the probability of anomie. Hermanowitz says anomie could play a role in reducing professional commitment and in producing marginality in the profession as the best and the brightest choose to enter other careers. In addition to this, we've read about many other changes in higher ed, from scarcity of tenure-track positions and increases in part-time and non-tenure-track faculty to those discussed by Slaughter and Kleinman, Habeneck, and Vyas in the American academic profession. Based on my understanding of Hermanowitz's argument, these changes, like the lack of opportunity for recognition of achievements, are also major structural changes which are disruptive to the norms of higher ed and could therefore lead to the marginalization of higher education. Slaughter examines the intersection of academic freedom and politics and discusses a number of threats to academic freedom. Likewise, Kleinman, Habeneck, and Vyas examine codes of commerce in academia and the changes stemming from the collision of industry and the academy. Slaughter says political change in higher ed is typically from liberal to neoliberal, favoring free market capitalism, which has blurred the lines between public and private entities and has challenged higher ed norms by putting profit first and promoting secrecy over sharing. Slaughter examines three cases, Novartis, Urofsky, and Churchill, all of which indicate major structural changes within higher education. In the case of Novartis, the financial arrangement between a for-profit company and a university department resulted in faculty loss of academic freedom as they pursued a research agenda decided by an agreement negotiated between the university administration and an outside company. Such an agreement damages academic freedom and other norms by linking the academy to corporations, giving preference to fields that can generate revenue, using public resources for corporate and personal profit, and by allowing research to be judged by the market rather than by expert peers. The Norofsky and Churchill cases also damage academic freedom by shifting decision-making, power, and research agendas from individuals to administrators. According to Slaughter, neoliberal changes challenge academic freedom through the creation of external partnerships. The increase of social conservatism shifts power from individuals to administration and creates increased scrutiny and surveillance of the research of those who challenge the new norms. Slaughter says in each of these cases, politics and power trump expert knowledge. Kleinman, Habeneck, and Vyas looked at the historical intersection of industry and the academy and found evidence of collaboration through each of the last 4 decades they examined, with an increase in the 1990s of industry and the academy creating alliances leading to corporations setting research agendas. This, however, isn't the only evidence of business infiltrating higher ed. It can also be seen in management practices and in the academic culture. The growth of the virtual culture is another major structural change in higher education. Berquist and Pollock say societal changes have led to instability in higher ed. However, the growth of distance and online learning, which now spans all ages, ethnic, and racial groups, has grown to help satisfy these societal changes. The virtual culture, which according to Berquist and Pollock originated primarily outside and exists independent of the academy, represent a major structural change by disrupting the traditional norms of higher ed and loosening organizational boundaries and roles. Also providing open access to information and democratizing learning by changing the student-professor interactions and roles. According to the authors, some feel the virtual culture threatens the roles and structures of higher education. Thus, I would say also potentially creating enemy within the academy. The tangible culture seems like the odd man out in this set of readings as it's rooted in history and tradition. I can't see how this culture contains the answers to the current growth and stresses in higher ed, as clinging to the past isn't the answer. However, it does prompt us to remember. The world is changing, and the world of higher ed must adapt to meet the needs of the present. Disruption is difficult, but disruption leads to growth. Rather than viewing enemy as the downfall of higher education, it should be viewed as an opportunity to rethink and rebuild based on the needs of today's and hopefully even tomorrow's world. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts.